President Trump travels to Qatar on Wednesday. Qatar is the country that plans to give Trump a present, a $400 million Qatari jet. Trump says he'll use the luxury 747 as Air Force One, at least temporarily. It's a stunning turn given that in 2017, Trump accused Qatar of funding terrorism at a very high level, but apparently not at a cruising altitude of 30,000 feet. We have more now in this report.
Parked on a tarmac in February near Mr. Trump's Florida home, his motorcade sitting adjacent during a tour, this is reportedly the plane in question, built for royalty.
An offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person, say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture.
The same gesture was offered by the Qataris 3 years ago, complete with royal accommodations, and accepted by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But it would be an expensive and highly classified issue for a U.S. president. Consider the security accommodations for a worst-case scenario in the air, say a nuclear emergency. Experts suggest bringing the Qatari plane up to Air Force One standards would be a lengthy build-out, unless the president waives the need for some or many of the changes. American company Boeing, by the way, is building 2 new Air Force Ones to replace the 1990s-era fleet at a reported cost of $4 to $5 billion. Problem is, they're 4 or 5 years late with delivery, reportedly expected now in 2029 when Mr. Trump is supposed to be out of office. Another problem, the pesky questions of federal law, congressional approval, and ethics, all mostly sidestepped.
On Qatar, has Qatar asked for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet? And how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wrote on X that the president's acceptance of the Qatari gift is not just bribery, it's premium influence, with extra legroom. If all goes to his plan, Mr. Trump says the Qatari plane to be repainted as Air Force One and one of the most valuable gifts ever received by the U.S. government will be parked at the future Trump Presidential Library after he leaves office and available for his own use.
Well, let's bring in Richard Painter now. He's a professor of corporate law. He also served as the White House chief ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush. Mr. Painter, it's good to have you back on the program. I know that you've said that you would never have approved this Qatar plane deal. Can you walk us through how this would typically be handled in a White House that respects the norms of ethics?
Well, first, the Constitution of the United States prohibits any person holding a position of trust with the United States government from receiving a present or an emolument, that's a profit or benefit, from any foreign government or any entity controlled by a foreign government. It's illegal, whether it's the President of the United States, a White House official, or a person in the Department of State. I abstained from travel to Germany to lecture at a German university while I was at the White House because the payment would come from the German government. That would be not permitted in the United States without the consent of Congress. Mm-hmm. So here we have the President of the United States who wants to accept a $400 million airplane from Qatar, a country that is very, very wealthy, has supported Hamas, has supported other organizations throughout the Middle East, but apparently has enough money left over to spend $400 million on a plane for the President of the United States. This is exactly what the founders of our country said no to when they drafted the Emoluments Clause. It's the reason why many, many government officials will not accept any invitations, for example, as I said, from German universities paid for by the state. They cannot do that without the permission of the United States Congress. And so this would be a clear no. In any other White House, the ethics lawyers would say, you can't do this.
Well, Mr. Painter, you are very clear about the legality of this, the constitutionality of this. There are lots of attorneys in Congress, Republican attorneys. Why are we not hearing anything from the GOP in Congress objecting to this?
The Republicans in Congress are not willing to stand up to President Trump. President Trump is also the head of the Republican Party. He controls the fundraising apparatus of the Republican Party. If any member of Congress crosses Donald Trump, he can see to it that they get challenged in a primary and they lose re-election. And so they are scared of him. What we see is Congress is not upholding its responsibility under the Constitution to oversee the operations of the executive branch, to hold the president accountable. The checks and balances contemplated by our founders are failing.
Well, if Congress then does not approve the gift of this airplane, which I'm assuming there's going to be no action from Congress as it looks right now, and if President Trump uses the plane, if he takes access of it, what legal recourse, if any, will exist then?
Well, this will be up to Congress for the next few years. If after Donald Trump's term is over, he seeks to turn the plane over to his presidential library, a successor president might very well seek to repossess the plane as the property of the United States because it was received by Donald Trump in violation of the Constitution of the United States. But temporarily, I guess Donald Trump would use the plane until the Republicans in Congress are willing to stand up to him and tell him that he must obey the Constitution. I should add that this is an extremely dangerous idea to have a plane that is outfitted in another country, a country that has given money to the Hamas government in Gaza, a government that is not necessarily on our side, to let them outfit a plane for the president of the United States. There's serious national security concerns. The American taxpayers will not save a nickel because Boeing is proceeding on its contract to make Air Force One as was originally planned.
I know that you have tracked Donald Trump's foreign business interests ever since 2016. How would you characterize the scale of emoluments risk now versus during Trump's first term? This
was a serious problem during Donald Trump's first term. Receipt of emoluments from foreign governments in his hotel empire, his clubs, his real estate holdings throughout the world. But the problem is now much greater because President Trump and his family have gone into the cryptocurrency business as well as social media. Cryptocurrency transactions are extremely difficult to trace. This is one of the concerns we've had in the Treasury Department for a long time about tracing cryptocurrency transactions, trying to do the best we can because of terrorism money being transferred through cryptocurrency, as well as payments of bribes to politicians, money laundering, and other uses. So it will be very difficult to find out if the president is receiving money from sources he shouldn't receive it from.
Okay.
I would say this with respect to any politician who has cryptocurrency accounts. They should not be allowed.
And before we run out of time, Mr. Painter, the 2024 Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, does that ruling effectively put the president above the law in cases like this with this jumbo jet gift?
The receipt of the jumbo jet gift from the government of Qatar is not a crime unless there's a quid pro quo of bribery in exchange of an official action in return for the jet, even though it is also unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court's decision in Trump versus United States bestowing immunity on the president for crimes he commits in his official capacity is an invitation to bad behavior from the president, whether it be President Trump or any future president. The Supreme Court made a very, very wrong decision there. This decision of the court greatly increases the chances of criminal behavior in the White House, whether now or in the future.
Yeah, as you've said before, Mr. Painter, just because it's legal doesn't mean it is ethical. Richard Painter, as always, good to have you on the show. We appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show.